Now, passing software interviews is tough, but I see a lot more people making it more difficult than what it has to be. So many people are focused on the coding challenges and the technical aspects that they forget the bigger picture. Well, in this video, I'm going to explain 5 ways of how you're failing job interviews without you realizing and what you can do to fix it. Now, before I got into the software field, I was introduced to this industry by a friend of mine. He knew I was going through some tough times, I had no money, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with myself. But what I really needed was a career to dedicate myself to so I could take care of myself and my future family. So I made the decision that I was going to learn to code even though I had a full-time job that wasn't paying me a lot. Now, along the way, I would talk to him and get advice about how to get my first interview and what I need to do once I actually get an interview. He gave me a lot of advice about how to maneuver myself through this new career. And one thing that I would notice is that when he gave me advice about these interviews, he didn't really stress as much about the technical aspect. He stressed more about making sure they understood my passion and excitement about getting into the field and what I saw myself doing in the next 5 to 10 years. So I made it a point to do this in every interview I had, whether it was on the phone, virtually, or in person. And this is where a lot of people mess up. They don't show any real passion or excitement for getting into the field or for even having an interview. Because most times when you get a phone screen or you get an interview, the person you're going to be interviewing with is going to be excited and they're going to be higher energy. And if you match that energy, it'll set you apart from the other candidates. But if you come off like you're not really sure of yourself, you're not really sure of what you want, and you're trying to just get into the field to make 6 figures, I don't blame you for doing that, but it's going to be obvious to the interviewer and they won't really take you seriously. Another thing is how you're preparing for these interviews. When you're preparing, it's a lot more that you should focus on outside of just the technical questions and the concepts, because there's a 99% chance during this interview, they're going to ask you,
what did you find interesting about the position? What did you find interesting about the company?
And if you don't have good answers for these questions, they will automatically disqualify you because they're going to know that you've just been spamming resumes and trying to get an interview with anybody and you're not really taking them seriously. So at least have an idea about the actual business. Go on Glassdoor and look at some recent reviews from employees that work there and see what they're saying about their experience working with the company. Any of this information helps. When you first apply for the position, if you get past the ATS system with your resume, you'll get a call from someone that's a recruiter and they might not be the most technical depending on the position that you're applying for. But when they ask you what made you apply to the position, you have to meet them on their level. You can say how you researched the company and they're doing such amazing work. You've been very impressed about what you see about the employees that work there, and you feel that with your skill set and the things that you've learned and continue to learn, that you can be an asset to them and help them to reach their goals. This is the type of answer you want to give to someone that's not very technical. In the beginning stages, it's a 99% chance that you'll have to tell them about yourself. When you get this question, please don't go and talk about how you like cheese and pineapple pizza and how you play softball with your church on the weekends. They care, but they don't care as much at that point during the interview process. So a better way to answer this question is to actually go into your background. You can talk about your reasons for getting into code, what you've been doing to learn how to code. All these type of things are impressive. Answering the question this way is going to help you a whole lot more than talking about your Game of Thrones collectibles. They'll start to see about your work ethic, how disciplined you are, and how much of a hard worker you are. And that's going to set you apart from everybody else. Then you have to be careful of how you answer questions that you don't know. Now, the purpose of job interviews obviously is to see how much you do know, and you want to have the right answers to the questions, but you can't be surprised when you get asked a question that's clearly above your level. And this is typically done for one reason, which is really to throw you off and see how you handle something that you don't know. If you're just going to blow smoke, or if you're actually going to be honest and upfront and you can handle it under pressure and give a correct response. Because honestly, once you get into this field, if you're not already in, the majority of your time is going to be researching. You're not gonna know the answers to everything. I know you see videos of people just coding non-stop without even taking a break or blinking, but a lot of the times it's not like that. So when you don't know the answer, just show that you're interested in the question and you're interested in learning the answer, and that as soon as you get done with the interview, when you get home, you're gonna research it and learn it so you'll be ready for the next one. Then how you go about coding challenges. Now, code challenges are my absolute least favorite part of the interview process. I feel like a lot of these challenges are kind of pointless, but we have to do them anyway. The pressure you feel when you go through these challenges makes you not think clearly sometimes, and it could just be a kind of a stressful situation. But coding in its basic sense is about solving a problem. But to solve the problem, you need to understand the problem. And since you only have a short amount of time for these coding challenges, you have a short amount of time to convince the team of how you're gonna go about working with them if you actually got the job. So a big mistake that a lot of people make in their coding challenges is that they're honestly just too quiet. So before you start writing any code, a good thing to do is to think about the problem and ask all the questions you need to clarify exactly what you're trying to do. If there's something you don't understand, plan, please ask the question. And I'll tell you why this is important during this interview process. So in the software field, we have something where you have sprints. So it may be 2 or 3 weeks depending on your company. And this is the amount of time that you have to do your work. Now, before you start doing sprints or before you start a sprint, you have something called sprint planning. So you and the product owner and the BAs, they go over all the requirements and things that have been requested to be completed during that sprint. When you look at these stories and you look at the requirements, you're trying to see what doesn't make sense. So we have these meetings just to ask questions, and these meetings last a long time. And this is our only opportunity to get something clarified before that work gets put into the sprint. Now, if you get used to asking questions during the interview process, they will see that you have the capability to speak up and to look for clarification if you actually were to be hired. Now, once you have everything clear, then you can start coding. But once you start coding, you want to talk out loud. Now, it's going to seem weird, but when I say talk out loud, I really mean whatever you're thinking, say it out loud like you're talking to yourself. This gives the interviewer some insight onto how you think, how you're working, and it helps to keep the awkwardness down, because if you're not talking and they're not talking, it's just like a clock just ticking in your head, and it can become even more stressful. So make sure you talk. Another benefit of that is that if you get a cool interviewer, sometimes they'll help you along. If you start to get stuck on something, they'll throw some hints out there, or they may ask a question to you that'll let you know like, hey, you're kind of going the wrong direction, but they don't know what you're thinking. They don't know what direction you're heading into if you don't say anything. Now, obviously, getting the code challenge correct is going to be some huge points on your side, but even if you get close to the solution and you show that you can work together as a team and you communicate well, you still have a really good chance of passing the interview. Then you have to ask good questions when you have the opportunity. You're going to have multiple times during this interview where they ask you if you have any feedback, if you have any questions for them. And these questions are very important for you to utilize and not waste the opportunity. Now, if you go and Google top interview questions to ask a company, you'll see stuff like, what's the biggest challenge you've had in the last 6 months, or, how you enjoy working with the company, just a whole bunch of bland and general questions. Those are okay, but the questions that you really want to ask is you want to use questions that are going to benefit you and make you look like a better candidate. So the questions I like to ask are questions that make me appear that I'm already seeing myself working with this company. So I ask questions about any upcoming projects that they have coming. How does the team work together to deliver things on time? If I was to potentially be hired, what would be something that I would work on first? And if I was hired and I spent that first year with the company, what would I have needed to do for them to say that I was a successful hire? Another question I like to ask towards the end of the interview process: is there anything on my resume or my background that could potentially disqualify me from the position? Now, you have to have some guts to ask this question. Interviewers are going to be pretty honest with you. They're going to tell you what you don't know, what you need to be stronger in, and it might be painful at first, but in the end, it's going to help you to get better a lot faster. Now, all of these are my opinion on what you can be doing wrong to fail your interviews, because I've done all of these, and it took me a long time and a lot of headache and a heartache to learn what I was doing incorrectly. So I hope this video was helpful. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.